I am so happy to be joined by Dr. Ron Paul today. I have a co-host today, Ryan Harrison. How are you doing today, Dr. Paul?
Very good. Nice to be with you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, sir.
And so take us through a little bit. What's something that you enjoyed when you got to serve the public as a congressman? And you ran for president too. So what was special about that for yourself, serving in the public spotlight for so long?
Well, probably different than most members of Congress because I never intended to be a congressman. I didn't run for it and plan for it and raise money for it. I got very interested in economics back in the early 70s. A lot of things were going on, and they were ushering in us, I thought, and I'm still convinced, a very serious and damaging type of economic policies, like the elimination of any backing to our currency, opening up the floodgates of just printing money. So that was in 1971 when they closed the gold window, and that no longer was our currency backed by gold. They were pretending that the currency was the gold was $35 an ounce, and it really wasn't. American people weren't even allowed to own gold back then. But when that happened, I said, there's going to be a lot more spending, a lot more big government, and eventually it'll self destruct. Right now, I haven't been in office and in and out and talking about it. I would say it's lasted a little bit longer than I thought it would, but people are dependent on it. But it's also something that people are getting very nervous about. You take, looks like you're in college. I worked my way through college, no time at all. I only had to pay $300 for my tuition per semester, and I could have a couple side jobs to pay for that. I understand your education's probably cost a lot more. That's all because we don't have sound money. We can't define the money. You should be able to have a unit of account and say a dollar is worth $35 to the ounce. And you're supposed to have certain characteristics. You should, but you definitely have to have a definition of, and we don't. And so that is what excited me. I ran for office, and I thought and it probably was sort of a fluke that I won the election, and I've been in and out and doing things. But it's always the same thing that I'm talking about because I think the monetary issue is so pervasive. If you don't have sound money, and you print money when you need it, there's going to be a lot more distortions in the marketplace, and that would lead to more and more problems. And I think we're facing it. I think it's one of the reasons that Trump probably won the election. The people are realizing that there's a serious problem going on, and they're seeking a way out. So that's what's interested me, but as much now as ever before.
Awesome, thank you. And I'll let Ryan take the next question.
Yeah, sure. So, you've advocated heavily for ending or reforming the Federal Reserve, just going on top of that, the creature from Jekyll Island. And I think people don't realize that it's actually a group of private banks overseen by the government. It's not actually a government institution. And, the Fed's like usury and, expansion of the liquidity in the economy has actually caused a lot of inflation. So, how realistic do you think it is to actually work to reform or end the Fed, given how powerful of an institution it is and the power of the people that control it?
Well, I have to qualify whether it's private or public. It's not probably a public government agency that you know about and they report and you know what's going on. It's a secret organization, but it doesn't make it private. Secrecy means that it's in limbo and nobody knows about it, which is probably a lot worse than just having something private.
Yeah.
And so it's something that only can be accomplished by more education, and that has to be the people will have to wake up. But the history is so clear. You can find out so many examples of runaway inflations. To think of Zimbabwe and Venezuela, think about the continental dollar. So it's historic, and that's how all empires end. And they build up too much debt, and they spread their power and authority too far, and they get too much involved in wars they shouldn't be involved in, and finally people lose confidence, and that's what we're at the beginning of that loss in confidence in the government and in the dollar and what's going on.
Appreciate you sharing that. And of course, obviously, you were the Libertarian nominee at one point for president. Do you think that a third party could ever become more powerful in the United States, or probably not?
Well, I'm always looking for a second party yeah, because the two parties aren't that much different. Today, you would say, well, that's crazy talk. The Republicans are certainly different. No, I don't think the reality of having Republicans and Democrats and all of a sudden the Libertarians having a third of the Congress. It could happen, but for some reason the country is so controlled. The deep state, they handle the situation a lot better by just having two parties to deal with. So anybody tries to get involved, they're as a third party. Yes, they can say a few things, but they won't get anywhere. They're not going to likely in our lifetime or your lifetime where you're going to all of a sudden see the libertarians winning. But that doesn't even enter my thinking. All I want to do is get the message out. So and that's what has to happen. The people have to know about what freedom is all about. And when they finally decide, there has to be changes. Right now, the change is being made. I and many others look at what Trump is trying to do and say, "Oh, he's pretty good on this, this issue. He is libertarian on this issue. He is more for privacy than the Democrats for." So it's worked in. It's a philosophic thing that accounts. The political parties are sort of man-made by aggressive people who want to control others, and their whole purpose is having power and the control of money.
Appreciate it. And I know Ryan has something to add to that.
Yeah, so going back to what you said about how I certainly agree, like the two parties are sort of the same. They're meant to create the illusion of dynamism where there really is none. But what you said earlier about countries overextending themselves militarily along with increasing their debt too high, you know, Netanyahu in the Clean Break memo 5 years before 9/11 outlined his plans for, regime change in Iraq, deposing Saddam Hussein and weakening Syria through regime change. And, fast forward 2 decades later, a lot of those things seem to have come true, except for a direct U.S. war with the Iranian state. So despite Trump's isolationist instincts, it seems like a lot of the people around him really are trying to stampede him into a war with Iran. Do you think he'll be able to keep us out of that, or do you think it's sort of a lost cause to the deep state?
Well, he's not going to go to war without us. We've been every year increasing our meddling in the Middle East, and that's not going to go away until the total bankruptcy of the country occurs. But they talk about, see, Trump has good ideas about Ukraine. Get out of there. The war doesn't make any sense. But he's increasing the spending in the Middle East. And a non-interventionist says we should mind our own business. We should stay out of the internal affairs of all nations. We should treat them all equally instead of say, "Oh, we like these people. We like these people." We've been involved in most all the coups in the last many, many decades. It's certainly the most recent one. We were big participants and, in a way, controlled the coup in Ukraine in 2014. That we orchestrated that, and yet 99% of the deep state reporting on the major media is Russia invaded Ukraine, and that was the whole problem. And it turns out that NATO, the United States, had promised we're going to stay away from your borders, and Russia gave up the whole notion. And that's when the Cold War ended. We'll get rid of our nukes and all this. And they followed the promises, but we did not. We orchestrated, through NATO, the war that's going on here, and we continue to finance it, billions and billions of dollars that we have sent to Zelensky. That's okay, but he said thank you the other day. Pretty much out of sync. It was just a terrible situation. So I think that the foreign policy has to be looked at in a much, much different way. Even though right now I think things are better than they were under Biden. I mean, whoever knew what they were doing? They were obviously stirring up trouble and trying to precipitate the war. But the control of the mainstream media is still very, very powerful. I'm thankful for the internet. I'm thankful that there still is an ability for X to get information out and with libertarian instincts. And I think the country's a lot better off. I think your generation will see the growth of libertarianism and freedom. I saw it from the 30s, and I do remember World War II and the consequence of World War II and all the growth. Even though we were rich, during those last 40 or 50 years, it's been an erosion of our liberties. So I think that is going to reverse. I think the educational system, not necessarily, I don't know who your professors are, but most of the time the professors at the major universities aren't very interested in teaching you what the Constitution really says. But I think the people are waking up, and I think the disgust that they felt with COVID has awakened a lot of people. So I think I looked to the Foundation for Economic Education, Leonard Reed, for a lot of my information, the Mises Institute I strongly supported, and that's what people have to know about. But there are very few universities you can go to and learn Austrian economics and why you should have sound money and all these things that are so wonderful about believing in personal liberty.
For sure. And I know we don't have much time left, so I kind of wanted to close with what is something that you are most proud of all your years? Obviously, you're a doctor, you've served the public, you've ran for president, you fought for liberty, you fought for freedom. What is something that you're most proud of? I'd like to close with this topic.
Well, I would say a lot of people give me credit for things that I think I have to modify. You did this and this and this and all these good changes. I would say calling attention to the principles of liberty and getting people excited about it and realizing as terrible as it is and as serious as it is and how big a problem it is, the solutions are not that difficult. And that is what I think is important. And I feel like I've contributed to that. Just to believe in personal liberty, it only requires one law and one principle, and that is the the principle that you can't lie, cheat, steal, or kill. It's a natural law. You don't even have to have a constitution. It was started before they even had any type of writing and history books or anything. People knew instinctively, but now it's a strict competition with nihilism. People say that's stupid. Why should young people like you waste your time studying about that? Well, first thing is you have to believe it is true. Second thing is it might be a lot nicer world to live in. Third thing is you might have a lot of fun starting to study and understand these issues. So I think what I feel good about is getting people interested enough to try to study these principles of good and evil and how that works into the big picture as well as into the picture of people trying to run our lives from a political position.
For sure. Well, Dr. Paul, we appreciate you joining the show today. I know me and Ryan both appreciated this. Is there anything else you wanted to add or to close with, Ryan?
Yeah, I just want to say I really respect your fight for liberty and individual freedom. I know you've been doing this for a long time, and your efforts have really inspired me over the years, and as well as your son. So I really appreciate everything you've done for the country.
Well,
Thank
it's
you.
great meeting two individuals like yourselves, and that gives me more encouragement.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paul.
Okay, very good.